Welcome to another episode of the Drew's News podcast and YouTube channel. I'm so excited for today's episode. Today I have one of the biggest people that kind of helped me get started within my journalism career here at the University of Florida College of Journalism and Communications, Harrison Hove. He was the 2020 Teacher of the Year for the College of Journalism and Communications, and he really is dedicated to pouring into the lives of those future journalists. And I can honestly say I would not be here where I am today and getting my work on air without his mentorship. So, how are you doing today, Harrison?
Drew, I am doing wonderful, even better now that I get to sit and have a conversation with you about some really important topics.
Absolutely. So, just to get started, what is a fun fact about Harrison Hove that we should all know?
I don't know. What's a fun fact? Totally outside the scope of my professional work. I love to travel, and one of my goals in life was to visit all seven continents. And in 2017, I achieved that goal. So I think that's a random fact that maybe not a lot of people know about me, but I want to be able to serve others best, and in order to do that, I think going places and engaging in different cultures is really important. It's life changing, and so I embarked on that journey a handful of years ago, and continue to do so to today.
Absolutely, and funny enough, I was actually in your class at the time that you embarked on that journey, so I remember that, and it was very cool to hear your experiences. Go ahead.
Oh, I love telling stories about travel because I think some students haven't had the chance to do that yet. And so there are many different ways you can travel these days, right? You can physically go to places, but you can virtually go to places too. And I think any immersion in different cultures really helps people, journalists especially, be much better at their jobs, able to connect and empathize and have compassion for everyone.
Absolutely. That's what makes one of the key things that makes a journalist great. So you were recently named the Teacher of the Year for the College of Journalism and Communications here at the University of Florida. What does that mean to you?
Oh gosh, I was really surprised, and because it means so much. I look around um, at my colleagues, and there are dozens of people who are top-notch teachers. They're excellent, both in their subject knowledge as well as being able to connect and relate to students. So, somehow, my name was selected, but I know that there's so many people that merit this kind of attention within our college. I came from industry, from working in local television news to the University of Florida. And my goal really is to help students, to help build that next generation of journalists, to help push people forward. And to know somehow that in someone's eyes I'm accomplishing those goals is really, really meaningful to me. Students are at the center of my focus in everything that I do, and I hope, you know, I hope this award is a nod to the fact that without the students, none of this would be possible. You know, Great projects, successes in classrooms, students going on and getting great jobs. It is all student focused. So, um, I just appreciate that students have been willing to be vulnerable and to learn and to be coached with me during my time at UF.
Absolutely, and I think I can speak for all fellow CG, all all of my peers within the CJC when I say that you really have helped us get on the path of trajectory and get those amazing jobs, and we're just so grateful for your mentorship, excuse me, here within the college.
Well, thank you, Drew. I really appreciate it. And I mean, if we use yourself as an example, there's nothing that I can say to I can set a student up for success, right? But ultimately, I can't do the work. And so, what's amazing, I mean, when you look at yourself, you've been able to accomplish and achieve so much, and you're the one who's doing it. I am collaborating with you. We're working together. I'm teaching you subject matter. Um, but you're the one who's ingesting that. You're the one who's applying what you've learned. You're the one who's hungry to continue to grow. We're just creating the pathway in order for that to happen. But you're the one who deserves the credit, as do all these students who have gone on to achieve such wonderful things. You're really the heart and at the root of all of this.
Absolutely, I appreciate that. So you have a wide array of past experience within the news industry. I also saw that over the summer you went back and did some meteorology work. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
So I think it's really important. Television news is changing. The journalism industry is changing at such a rapid pace that, I exited and came to the university 4 years ago, working in a student powered newsroom. So I'm still view myself as somewhat on the front lines, but going back into a commercial television station, I think is so important so often to see what is the latest and greatest technology, to see how the workflows may have evolved, to see what the demands are, those skill sets that are needed to be successful. Because observing and having those conversations and building networking relationships, which could ultimately help my students, position me to create and cultivate an experience for my students that is relevant and that is going to place them um, in line to be successful. It's going to make them more employable. And ultimately, if we measure, student success in various ways, one of those measures is going to be employability, is going to be jobs, is going to be relevancy. And so I try to make sure that I'm up to speed and can teach my students in the best way possible for the present time, which is constantly, you know, moving.
Now that you have the opportunity, you've been in the industry, but now that you have the opportunity to teach the next generation of journalists, such as myself, what is your favorite part about that experience?
I think my favorite part is when you see a student have a breakthrough, right? Um, Part of what I do is teach subject matter, but part of what I do is nurture human beings and grow people as individuals. And so we talk a lot about different things. I mean, sure, we talk about shooting, writing, and editing. We talk about leadership in my class. We talk about um, self responsibility. We talk about just being a decent human. We talk about the importance of serving and connecting with others, covering all communities, marginalized communities, things like that. And so when I see a student able to take all the information that's thrown at them and put it together, they may have not thought at the beginning that it was possible, right? I know it's always possible. They might not have thought. And so to see that moment where it all just comes together and everyone is like, wow, this turned out, is really gratifying. It's really gratifying because that empowers a student, that builds confidence in a student, and that propels a student forward to be even more successful and to aim even higher. And so, um, it fosters a positive experience and this idea that in journalism, it's all about lifelong learning and you got to keep at it. You can't be discouraged. You just have to keep moving forward and learning as you go.
Absolutely, and funny enough, I feel like I can share this candidly. You said you make us into believers, and we might not think it's possible in the beginning, but by the end we see what we truly can do. And I was one of those, in the beginning, you and I had to collaborate even more closely due to physical limitations and such. But you kept the mantra of my parents that I am no different than any other student, right? I would often wheel into your office, and afterwards I would have my little cry and be like, okay, this guy's a little tough. But in the end, I think it has really paid off and made me into the journalist I am today, and I consider you to be one of my closest mentors. And if I ever need a letter, a rec, or anything at all, you're there. So
You,
it was tough love, but now looking back at first, I was like, I don't really get this, but now I see that it was all in the form of love, and you do that to truly push us up to that greater standard.
well, I think, I'm glad that you coined it tough love. That's what I call it too. And I think that, you know, I know what the expectations are in industry. And so I would rather students um, learn and grow, and sometimes they make mistakes, right? And that's okay. And sometimes they feel like, oh, it's really hard, and that's okay. I love having those conversations about why things are done the way that they're done. Why are we so ambitious? We're so ambitious because there's so much competition in this industry, but we're also so ambitious because I know my students can do it. And I firmly believe if I set the bar here, my students would ring the bell. But if I set the bar here, my students are still going to ring the bell. The only thing that's different here is the instructor's expectations. And so my expectations are high because I know it's possible. I know it's possible. And I want to get the best out of my students because I know when they look back, they're going to say, you know what? I didn't know it's possible, but I did it. And now I know it's possible. And I think that experience paves the way for achievement. It really does. So, you know, I I appreciate your willingness to be candid too about that. I think a lot of students um, have various points in the class where maybe they feel down. I think it mirrors maybe industry. Every day can't be the most amazing day ever, but part of it is you're building amazing resiliency. And you have to believe that when you realize you can overcome a small hurdle or, a challenging course, what can't you do? Right. So it's all part of the process.
Yeah, one of my greatest accomplishments, that we set out from the beginning of your course is to get something on air, something that I created, right? And by the
Yep.
end of it, I was able to get my first VOSA on air, and that just tickled me pink, And sometimes I would, especially have that down days because in the course people are working in pairs, right? Well, for me, logistically, transportation and various other different factors, I wasn't able to do that. I worked with a DSLR camera. I shot my own video. I went out with my personal care attendants who have absolutely no earthly idea of broadcast news and couldn't even help me even if they tried. And some days, I would have a vision, right? But then I would have to betray that vision to that individual that's trying to help me, and I would just get so frustrated and frustrated. But I think at the end of the day, that's really helped me. At first, I was like, it kind of stinks that I can't work in Paris due to logistical barriers that I have of my own. But at the end of the day, I think it really challenged me and really put me a step ahead of everyone else because while everyone else is having a partner to rely off of, I'm doing the work of two people. So when that VOSAT did air, it made it that much more rewarding. So,
Everybody's working solo now. So
yep,
you paved the way for us all.
that's the name of the game. There is no more photogs, unfortunately. It's all multimedia journalist. So You push your students, you mentor your students. One of those students that you really pushed throughout my time with you during TV1 was Drew Dees, myself. Take me back to that moment we first met. What was your initial reaction, and you can be candid here, when you heard that I was going to be taking a broadcast news course as a person with a disability who lives his life in a chair?
I thought, this is going to be a challenge. I mean, I knew, I knew it was going to be a challenge just because, um, for me as an instructor, I knew that we were going to have to think outside the box to solve um, issues that uniquely might rise because of the mobility situations.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't exactly sure how we were going to do this, but I knew we were going to do this, right? Because, you know, in terms of education, education, everyone deserves an education, right?
Mm-hmm.
Education is such a ticket that's so transformational and powerful in one's life. And um, that's why I'm here, right? So I knew we were going to make it happen. I just wasn't sure. And what I love and saw immediately was that your willingness to be open with me and to share with me and to collaborate with me really, really helped. It was an amazing experience for me um, because I don't know. I didn't have this, I didn't have any experiences prior to where I really needed to think and strategize and be creative in order to make it work. And so it was powerful for me knowing that as an instructor who will be teaching, the hundreds or even thousands of students over the course of my career, I feel a lot more confident now in knowing that I have the ability to serve in a impactful way others, and that I have the ability to break down barriers. And I know that a lot of that work of breaking down barriers and creating equitable environments comes with just open conversation and collaboration and not being afraid to say what I don't know. And um, you were wonderful in that process. Um, and we spent a course of months. I mean, it wasn't just we met one time and okay, we're done.
Yep.
We continued the conversation, and I really appreciate that. Because that's you being vulnerable with me, but also me being vulnerable with you, and just saying, like I might be at the head of the class and I might be teaching the class, but I really need your guidance and your help in order to work together to come up with like how we're going to do this. And so I'm grateful. And I'll tell you, I have used um, that process now with every student who comes to me and says, I have this concern or this is my accommodation letter. I will ask to, if a student wants to have a conversation, I love it because I much prefer collaboration as opposed to me looking at some letter and then making decisions in a vacuum, you know?
Yep. And from day one, that wasn't me. I'm like, all right, let's get this done. I use the approach of it's a learning curve for all of us. And I'm not here to say, all right, get it right on the first try, Harrison. It's a learning curve for me, and it's a learning curve for all the faculty. And I think everyone has truly embraced that because I do realize there's not many like me in a wheelchair with a physical disability who's trying to be a reporter or an anchor. You don't see that every day on TV. It's 2021, and I believe it's time to change that standard. We have lots of diversity and inclusion in different aspects in the industry, but what you don't see is disability. So I hope that I can use my platform to pave the way for others such as myself who may see me, who may see my story, who may hear your story that you're telling right now and say, hey, if Drew can do it, if Harrison can do it, I can do it too. So that's where I come from with everything I do.
Well, and that's what I just love about your desire to achieve and to be a trailblazer. And I absolutely think, you hit the nail on the head in terms of representation. You know, people, number one, I think it makes us better able to cover all aspects of our community with diverse perspectives, right? But I also think there's something to be said about people who consume content, and there's something powerful when the person on television or any visual medium looks like you know for me or for anyone, when you see someone who looks like you, um, there's some power to that. It's a powerful experience, and I think younger people or any people, um, who might look like you, see you be successful, that means something special to them as well.
Absolutely. I hope at the end of the day that I'm making a difference, and that's what I'm here to do. It's not just about Drew, Drew has goals, but he wants to help others along the way. So we talked a little bit about the process of what it was like having me in a course. What would you say to any faculty or fellow professors or anyone out there who might find themselves in a similar situation with one of their students along the way? What piece of advice or encouragement could you give them?
I think the biggest piece of advice is embrace it, lean into it, and by that I mean don't don't uh, don't ignore, right? Don't try to deal with it by yourself. It's okay to have conversations with students and say, um, I really appreciate you being proactive, bringing your letter to me of accommodations, but I want to collaborate with you because I firmly believe I want you to be comfortable with what we decide. I want you to have the most meaningful experience possible, and I want you to feel like you're being served in the best way possible. And so I just think being open and embracing that is going to create a much, much better outcome for everyone involved, as opposed to a transactional, here's my letter, take the letter, read the letter. Okay, I'm going to enact these accommodations in the way that I think is best. When I'm not the expert here. Really, you're the expert. And so that's why I loved that I was able to draw on your experience and you could guide me on how we could create an equitable path forward where you could be as successful as possible.
Absolutely. Recently, due to COVID-19, you've had to transition your broadcast news course to an online platform in many ways, and you've given various talks about how to keep that sense of engagement on a virtual platform. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, I think part of what makes learning so much fun is the community that you can build with other people. Um, and in a virtual space, one of the challenges is not only that social connection, but it's how do you do all of this hands-on learning that we do in broadcast news classes when we're in a remote setting or there's some distance between us and we can't be in front of each other's faces and touch the equipment necessarily. And so I have, much like the approach that I utilized when we worked together, which was, you know what, let's be creative, let's visualize solutions and go from there. I did the same thing at the height of the pandemic when we were working remotely. You know, I wasn't exactly sure what the solution was immediately, right? But I knew I somehow had to foster these hands-on skill development, this hands-on skill development process with students. I had to help them build their technical skill set without being in front of them. And so I just creatively thought, what can we do to build certain skills? And and for me it was We might not have traditional cameras, but we certainly have cell phone, right? And we could shoot video with our phones. But other times, maybe we were taking video from social platforms with permission, or we were asking our sources to create user generated content that we couldn't do. They could shoot video of themselves doing whatever the story was about. Um, so for me, it was just that willingness to reimagine what the workflow is, what the possibilities are. Sometimes we just get so stuck into what we know that it's hard to do that. But the pandemic was such a disruption, it forced us to embrace new ways and to get creative in how we can still make things happen regardless of what's going on in the world around us. And in a college setting, that's really important because students, they're still going to graduate in the same amount of time. The clock is still ticking towards graduation, even in remote learning.
Yep.
And so that's why it becomes really important to make sure those students are served in the best way possible.
Absolutely. And you talk about thinking outside the box, and the COVID forcing the news industry to think outside the box as a whole. And I always talk about this, and I'm curious to see your take on it as well. I always tell people that COVID for me has sort of been a blessing in disguise. Because during my first job, I might have went into my news director or whoever it may be on the leadership team and say, "Hey, because of my physical limitations, I may need to work remotely a few days a week." But now, because of COVID, when I go into these interviews, you know what? It can be a thing because you've done it before. A lot of the reporters and anchors I know, they're reporting right from their homes. So I really think that in the end, COVID has sort of blessed me in that way because it's really given me a platform that I really needed.
And I do think um, it will forever change how we tell stories, and it somehow gave us permission to utilize a lot of new technology tools that maybe we weren't using previously or using to the degree in which now we can use. And so I think technology is a great equalizer in many ways. And you're right. You now know um, there are ways to reimagine and make things possible. And I think um, I think, well, I mean, you're great at bringing solutions to the table anyway. So I have no doubt, regardless of what the setting is globally, like in the world, um, you're going to be able to find a pathway to success and communicate that and collaborate with others in order to make that happen.
Absolutely. I always tell people I'm not here to hurt you per se and tell you let's make everything successful, but I'm here to give you ideas to not only benefit me, but future. You
Right.
could have a reporter and or anchor that, I don't know, falls and breaks their leg and now they're on crutches. And now, that flat platform desk in the studio, I not only benefit from it, but little things like that people can benefit from it. Universal design universal design is huge for me, and I think that it should be the norm. Not just in the industry, in the world in general. Because when I leave out these doors in 6 months, and I don't know if I've ever told you this story, Harrison, but when I leave out the doors of Cypress Hall, which I currently reside in at the University of Florida, and it's one of two accessible dorms in the nation that have the walk-in showers, and iPad that controls the blinds and doors. It's been a game changer because for 23 years prior to coming here, I had to get in and out of the bathtub head first. So it's like 6 months from now. Where do we go from here? We're in a booming college town with all these apartments, but none of them have showers. And I'm like, all I need to be able to get in the door, and I need to walk in shower, and I'll be good to go. So it's, you know, one of my platforms I hope to push is to push that envelope, to meet with designers, whether it's for news stations or, apartments or anything, just to kind of make the world as a whole more accessible. So,
I have no doubt that you're going to do that for sure.
Yep, just watch and see. Just give me some time and I'll work on it. Your mentorship to your students extends well beyond the classroom, especially with me as well. I came to you and I said, hey, Harrison, I need to seek your advice. I need to seek your counsel. Like, after a couple career fairs, I'd been going and looking for that internship that everyone, loves to have or needs to have in order to build on those skills even further than we do here at WT. And I said, Harrison, I got this news station down in Orlando that wants to give me this opportunity. Should I go for it? And you said, heck yeah, and I'll help you in any way that I can and collaborate with you on that. And you did. Can you tell me a little bit about that process? What was that collaboration like for you?
Well, I mean, the first thing was saying you got to go for it, right? Because I do remember, if memory serves right, you were not sure. You were not sure about it. And I said, do it. Just do it. You can do it. Um, and so I was really happy and proud to see you take that step. I think when it came down to it, you know, you, I was so proud of you because you landed that internship by yourself. You are the one who interviewed. You are the one who was persistent. You are the one who made it happen. And really, all I did on my end was share my experiences when the station said, okay, we want this to happen, but we don't necessarily have the experience. And I'm like, oh, I was just in your shoes. I understand where you're coming from. And I said, here's what I went through. This is the process that like Drew and I worked out. And it worked out beautifully for me. So maybe you might want to employ the same philosophy. Um, and I might be able to help you and identify just a couple things off the top of my head that you might need to start thinking about. And that was really it. So I was a very, very minor player in the whole process, right? But I hope that am provided some encouragement where people might not be sure how is this going to work. I hope that my voice saying, you know what, it's okay that you don't know. And really the most important thing is your willingness. If you're willing, I can help you with ideas, Drew will help you with ideas, and everyone can collaborate to make it possible, you know? And so I was really pleased that as a news organization, that that media outlet found value in creating a pathway for all interns, right? And they demonstrated a willingness verbally, and then they followed that up with action. And maybe I provided some comfort when I said, "Hey, you can do it. I did it. You can do it. And here's what I had to do, and maybe this will help you." Right? But I think talking and sharing stories um, is at the heart of it at a very foundational level. That I think that was helpful and important. But I do give tremendous credit to Wesh in Orlando, WESH, and their parent company, Hearst Television, and and the team that surrounds you to make this happen, to make it happen.
Absolutely. I just made a post the other day, and everyone always says it takes a village, but when you're a broadcast journalist with a physical disability, that saying has a whole new meaning because it truly does take a village. And just to give the viewers and listeners a little context, I want to let you all know just how much and how dedicated I was that summer. I was going down 2 days a week to Orlando, getting up at 5 a.m., getting out the door at 6 a.m. on Tuesdays, driving down to Orlando, working until from 9 a.m. until 6 o'clock at night, staying overnight in a hotel, getting up the next day, working a 9 to 6 shift again, driving home, and then guess what? I was back in the studios the next day for WFT with News in 90 with Harrison. So some of those mornings he's probably like, wow, how's Drew here? How's he still doing it? But I never missed a beat, never missed a day, and I'm glad I did it. And like Harrison said, I will be forever grateful for the opportunity that Wesh has given me. And they want to, I want to let you know, Harrison, they want to continue that partnership. If they have any, you have any journalists that come, on down the line like me, they want to give them that shot. I have a friend that they want to give her a shot once COVID is over. They want to make it remote. They are willing to make it work. As long as the person is or the individual is able to put in that work, they're willing to make it work. And I'm happy to say that I'm still close with both the former assistant news director and the news director at West. And just a shameless plug, if you all tune in soon, I will have them on the show as well. And you'll get to hear from news leaders about how they made it work. So there are any news leaders that are listening to this episode right now and they're like, wow, they made a top 20 market internship work for a person with a disability. We want to do that, but we need some guidance. They'll be on the show as well, so that should be a great episode. So stay tuned for that. All right, Harrison. So this is my last question. It's kind of like my signature question. I ask
Okay.
everyone that comes on the show and everyone that will come on the show this question. And it's okay if you need to take some time to think on it because people get stumped on it all the time. But you've done a lot, right? In your professional life, mentoring students. You've done so much. But what do you hope the Harrison Hove legacy will be?
Yeah, that's a really tough question. It's a really deep question, and I think one of the most important things for me, one of the reasons I got into journalism was to serve other people. And I thought, as a reporter, a meteorologist, news anchor, all these positions that I served in, it was very much to help other people. Okay, so when I made the transition to work at the university, it was still with this idea that service was first and foremost in my life, particularly in my occupation. And so my hope um, and legacy is that, I mean, it's twofold. One is industry specific, and one is just education specific. Uh, that is, if you um, are willing to work with me, I want my legacy to be with those relationships that I cultivate, that I will stop at nothing to see individuals be their best selves, personally and professionally. Um, so much of that is, it comes with education, right? But so much of it is the relationship that we build around education. And I hope that people look back at these trials and tribulations, because there's up and down as you're learning, right? I hope people look back and see that, you know, this was a profound moment in time in many people's lives, and that one voice, that pushed, or that one voice that said, "Don't give up," or the one voice who said, "Yeah, I know it's tough. I'm right here with you. I know it's tough, but I support you, even though today was a rough day. I'm here for you." Um, and then, as you mentioned, beyond the institution, students still years later ask for help on like negotiating job contracts or career advice or what they should do. Those meaningful relationships continue, right? And it's because that moment in time was so impactful during college. And so I just hope people look back and it all relates to belief, right? I hope people look at me and say, you know what? He believed, he pushed hard, he really cared. And he created and set me up created opportunity and set me up to be as successful as possible. That's all I hope. I take such joy in seeing others go on to be super successful. And again, they're the ones who are being the success. I played just a really small piece in that whole process, but that is enough fuel for me to continue to serve others. So I hope that's the legacy, is just empowering and uplifting other people towards success, both personally and professionally. That's what I hope people remember.
Absolutely, and I might be biased, but I can confirm for me personally all those attributes: caring, passionate, willing to help, that you just described yourself as, those are all true for me. And you've done so much more than that. I could go on and on talking about Harrison Hove because I always gloat about you around here to the DRC and everyone. Like, you gotta connect with Harrison. He is a great connection to have. So to know you is to love you, and I hope that our friendship and mentorship will continue for many years to come.
It absolutely will. And I love seeing everyone go on and be successful. And I cannot wait to see, you grow and develop in this industry and continue your path, because I think that we might not even be able to conceive what you end up doing and the impact that you can potentially have. And so I just love it because the story is unwritten and continues to unfold. And any journalist loves a good story. So I am watching in my front row seat.
You've just listened or watched another episode of the Drew's News podcast. If you or someone you know has a testimony they like to share, or they're just doing something good in the world, or you have a topic that you would like me to cover, because I always say the content that you all want to see is the content that I want to create. You can follow me on social media on all platforms at Drew D's Reports, or email me at dsreports@gmail.com. And as always, remember, if you can dream it, you can drew it.